conversation.
And in 1 hour, we'll make a $75,000 decision about or set ourselves up for a $75,000 mistake if we get it wrong. And this is the bit that I guess I've been there and done all this, so I know how easy it is to fall into the trap of not doing it properly. But accountants, what we do when we're advising clients, and Rory, you and I have had a discussion about this, but what we do is we use our knowledge, our business acumen to use information that we can glean from clients, financial information generally. We use that to help them make better decisions, and that's.
Welcome to AFO Wealth Management Forward, a podcast about finance, accounting, technology, and entrepreneurship. We apply our decades' worth of experience and insight into what makes businesses work, so we can help others grow both personally and professionally. In this ever-evolving marketplace, we help accounting firms and financial advisors grow their practice through the adoption of holistic wealth management services. Learn from industry leaders and subject matter experts to unlock the secrets of their success. A podcast that shows people and companies the transformative power of technology so they don't fear it, but instead harness it. Don't fight the robots, team up with them. And here are your hosts, Rory Henry, Director of Business Development, and CEO Rob Santos of Arrowroot Family Office.
Alrighty, hello everyone. Once again, I'm joined by Will Hill of Will Hill Consults. Will, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. Rory, how are you?
I am doing great. I cannot complain. It's a beautiful day here in Marina del Rey, California. So, nothing to complain about here.
Feels like you're kind of cheating by saying it's a beautiful day in Southern California. Feels like you're at an advantage for that answer.
Right? It's not too shabby over here. Well, we have a great guest with us today. Will, he's the co-founder and director at Accountests, a platform that allows you to test the technical knowledge, critical reasoning, and review the personality profile of your candidates. We're going to talk about testing and attracting and securing talent. So without further ado, let me introduce our guest, Giles Pearson. Giles, welcome to the show.
Hi, Rory. Hi, Will. And it's great to be with you, and very envious of the Southern California sunshine over here in New Zealand right now, I'd have to say.
Great. I kind of want to pile it on, guys. So let's get started, Giles. Can you kind of give our audience a background about your story, and then what led you to start Accountests?
Yeah, thanks, Rory. Well, look, I guess it all comes down to the cost of getting it wrong, and I was a partner in PwC over here in New Zealand for 18 years and worked for them for 25 odd years. And one of the things that we saw both in our own business and for the clients that we worked with was how often people just got it wrong. And we've all got those war stories of just getting the wrong person. And there's one that just really resonated with me, was this young lady that we hired who the CV was great, and she interviewed really well, and we took her on, and she just knew nothing, and it was just so painful. Painful for me, painful for the team, painful for her. She and we had to manage her out of the business. And it's experiences like that in an accounting firm. You just don't need that, because it's we get into accounting to help clients pretty much. That's the fun bit. Working with the team's great, but working with clients, I'd have to say, is probably better. And having to people challenges is not what accountants were trained to deal with, and probably is the most stressful thing in an accounting firm is dealing with people problems. So I guess that was sort of the genesis of the idea. When you look at the cost of getting it wrong, there's all these surveys out there with people telling you it's 1.5 to 3.5 times salary. People put numbers on it. We actually having been there and done it, we built a bit of a calculator. People can go on and sort of work out for themselves what they think it might cost them. But whichever way you cut it, it's a big number. And what the surveys tell you, and what we all know, is actually the monetary cost, the pure monetary cost, is actually probably the third most. Is the third factor. The top two factors are the effect on the team. It's the effect on morale is just horrendous, because everybody sees what's going on, and the effect on productivity. Lost money. Time is dollars. And I was reading this thing the other day where they were saying, most people can see a poor performer in under 4 weeks, and most people take 16 weeks to exit them from the business. And again, I think in a small accounting firm, most accountants are reluctant to make those hard calls.
Yeah.
So stuff just slides, and the team grind their teeth and go, why is the partners or directors not dealing with this? And the whole thing sort of spirals to a point where somebody does something. And it's so that, I guess, in a long-winded way of saying it, this is why we did what we did, because we wanted to help firms make some of these decisions, make good decisions, good hiring decisions with knowledge.
Yeah, let's talk about your solution here, Accountests, your testing suite, and then some of the science behind the test to make sure that you are making those good hires, Giles.
Yeah, so I guess when we started looking at this, I actually, whilst I was still at PwC, went to the guy who's now my business partner, Steve Evans, and he's got a background in testing and assessment, and said to him, find us some technical tests, because we don't want to go through this, and our clients don't want to go through this. So he went out and looked for stuff, and the reality was there was a little bit in the US, nothing in the rest of the world, and most of it was really poor. Not a lot of science. Here's some questions which we wrote 15 years ago, based on sort of nominal ledgers and general ledgers and sales ledgers and stuff that most of us don't even know what they're about. And and then you go, well, at the end your candidate got 12 out of 20, and you go, well, that's interesting. Is that good? Is that bad?
What does that mean?
Is that going to help me know whether this person is right for the job that I've got? So we then said, okay, well, that's not going to help. So let's build something. So what we said was, let's look at the sort of the levels of competency that you need to. And I guess, bearing in mind, we started a business where there was no market, so we've sort of had to try and work out what people might be looking for, and we keep nuancing it, and we're actually going to sort of go back and nuance it further. But we sort of said, well, let's look at roles in accounting firms, CPA level roles for sort of general client accounting and tax. Let's look at sort of part qualified, so call them intermediates, seniors, client accounting managers, production managers. People have all different sorts of names for these things. So people who are not CPA qualified, qualified by experience, maybe have a degree, maybe have a tertiary qualification of some sort. Then sort of bookkeepers. So what are they? People who are processing day-to-day information, helping business owners on a day-to-day basis. And then some sort of simple tests down at the sort of double entry accounting. Prove to me in 15 minutes that you know your debit from your credit. And a similar sort of test for a sort of graduate level who sort of looking at that business acumen sort of piece. So we said, let's sort of look at those levels, and then we built some tests around that, so what we did was we built the test sets, and then we put them out to, for those higher level ones, we put them out to a whole bunch of accountants who were of the right level, and we got them to sit those tests and then come up with a norm group, so that when you're putting your candidate through that test, you've actually got a norm group that you can compare them to and say, well, here's my CPA level candidate. They are, pick a number, they're on the 60th percentile. So I know that they're better than 60 out of 100 CPAs. There's 40 out of 100 are better than them. That's pretty good. So rather than just looking at a raw score, you're actually saying, well, how do they compare to their peers? The bookkeeper test actually is a competency-based test. So we went out to the professional bookkeeping organisations, and they really helped us put together a test that says, if your candidate gets more than 70% on these level questions, they should be able to do these tasks for you. If they don't meet that threshold a bit for the next level up, don't ask them to do those things, or review what they've done, make sure that you've got good oversight. So I guess it's about trying to put some science behind these things, and allow people to with that science use some judgment and make a call. Does this person in today's market, hey, wow, it's you're sort of lucky if you've got a candidate. So and that's just the reality all around the world. It's not a US issue. But look, at least if you know that they're not that a great performer, well, how do you might still want to make them an offer. You might not be willing to accept the salary number that they're asking, but hey, here's some objective evidence. You didn't perform that well, but we're prepared to work with you. Let's make the onboarding experience positive. Let's get some training in place. Let's get a mentor in place. Let's have some review times so that you don't end up in that grinding point 4 weeks down the track going, well, this person's really not what I thought they were going to be. I've paid through the nose for them, and now they're pissing me off. For a fairly small amount of money, you can try and deal with that pain point and take people on with a bit of knowledge and understanding.
So Giles, there's been a shift in the last few years around the recruiting industry and placement, and there's a lot of conversation out there around speed of the interview processes, not having candidates do extra work because of the amount of competition that's out there. When does this sort of thing happen? Is this, hey, before we interview you, we have you take this test to make sure you meet the baseline, or do you do the firm fit interview first, and this is a secondary skills test? What's kind of the approach that seems to be happening right now?
Yeah, mostly people are using it at the end of the process, I'd have to say. And I think that's, well, to be fair, the process is pretty truncated with a shortage of candidates. But I guess one of the things we said right from the beginning was the recruiting industry's probably is a bit of a dinosaur in parts, and the testing and assessment industry is an absolute dinosaur. And we said right from the beginning, this has got to be something where people can get instant answers, because you typically with a testing and assessment firm, you want to test for something, you need to go in, sign up with them. They'll send you a link to a test when you ask them nicely. The candidate does it, and sort of 24 hours later you'll get a report from them, and then they want to talk to you about it and all these sorts of things. And we're going, no, this is life's moved on from that. So we said it's got to be instant. So buy it instantly. Candidate clicks on a link, does a test. A minute later, you get a report with all the interpretation aids that you need to make a decision based on that report. So I guess, what we say to people with the sort of speed to hire would be is, literally you can get somebody to come in for an interview, get them to come in at 10 o'clock, get them to sit the test that you want them to sit. By 11 o'clock, you've got the report and you've had a chance to have a look at it. 11 o'clock, you can sit down and have an interview with them, show them the report, talk through the issues, have the interview, talk about all the other things that you need to talk about. At 12 o'clock, they're out the door, and at 12:30, you've probably got as much information as you need to make a decision subject to reference checking. So I think yes, it does add, obviously it adds more time to the process, but if you if you put it in at the right place, and you know, there's absolutely no way this can slow you down. And the amount of extra information that you get and the amount of additional things that you can then perhaps ask at reference checking is going to make that extra hour, you know, well worthwhile, I think.
And I would almost say too, in a time where I see, especially in larger organizations, the less willingness to go into detail on references. Smaller firms may be a little bit more willing to be more candid. This is a great way to check that reference of, do they actually know what they're doing? And that's a reference that you can't figure out from a social media look through in their profile and some of those other areas.
Totally. Reference checking is a minefield, a legal minefield and a moral minefield. You know, and I'm sure we've all given references to people where we're going, oh, I hope they get this job. So yeah, exactly. Objective evidence, you know, definitely.
Yeah. Speaking of social media profiles, maybe a more subjective evidence, can you talk about the personality profiles? I mean, are we looking at a Myers-Briggs type test or Big Five tests? You know, what goes into those personality profiles and in regards to screening these candidates that you have specifically tailored for accounting firms?
Yeah, so I guess, you know, look, we started off with skills. That was the big gap in the market because there just wasn't anything. But I guess after a while, we worked out the personality was, you know, obviously part of the solution, and there are a lot of personality profile tests out there already. But what we looked at was we said, I guess, a couple of things. One, it's got to be, if we're going to do one, it's got to be a high quality test. So but ours is based on the Big Five factors. So, you know, and your stuff like Myers-Briggs and DISC and whatever, when you look at those, they're interesting to use in some team dynamic situations, but the research would tell you is they've actually got no predictive validity for hiring. So, you know, based on the results of the test, can you predict how the person's going to perform in the role? And the answer is probably no with some of those. You know, if your candidate's a bird or a color or whatever, then or an acronym, then it's probably not. It's not Big Five, and it's not going to have that validity. So that was number one for us. And I guess what we did, we looked, ACCA out of the UK did a big study a few years ago saying, you know, what are the competencies you need to be a successful modern accountant? And we then looked at those and built a personality profile from scratch. Look, and you know, you can do that. The question sets are all out there if you know where to look. But what we did was we then did one that was focused a bit more on things that accountants need to be thinking about, you know, ethics, relationships, things like that. But more importantly, we then looked at the reporting and said, well, let's make sure that people actually get something out of these reports. So here's the personality profile. It tells you some stuff. What are the interview questions I need to ask? So for a small firm who doesn't do this very often, you know, it's really challenging. They're generally not that good at interviewing. So here's some interview questions based on the profile that you need to dig into to look at, you know, where they, you know, what are the factors that are outliers, if you like, and zooming in on those, and then a professional development plan that goes with that. So, you know, if you take this person on, here's some things that you're going to want to think about in their career plan, things for them to work on. Again, it's about working collaboratively with the person to go, you know, your personality profile, I guess, tells you what your preferred working style is. It doesn't tell you how you will work, because if you like, the smart ones know how to work around the parts of their personality that are not perfect for the job. And that's where the interview questions come in, is to try and tease out whether people can see what their personality shortfalls, if that's the right word. There's no, you know, it's not really a shortfall, but what are the things, if you're uncomfortable in social situations, which is probably not untypical for accountants, how do you deal with that? Talk to me about how you cope with that, and if people don't see it or don't have a mechanism to work it out, well, these are the things that you want to find out on interview. So I guess it's about then having an accounting specific set of interview questions and an accounting specific professional development plan that goes with that. We normed the personality profile with 300 plus CPA level accountants, so that when you look at that, you're looking at where does my candidate fit against a whole lot of other accountants, as opposed to a whole lot of other salespeople or whatever. So you're getting I guess a different flavor on that personality. And if you understand accountants, and if you see that you've got your candidate is even more introverted than the standard introverted accountant, then you've got some, if you want them to go out and find clients for you, then that's going to probably be a challenge, and you can start to think about what that means depending on what sort of role it is you're trying to hire for.
Yeah. Can you talk about matching those personal profiles and roles? I know we talked about, the finder, grinder, and minder. Can you kind of discuss those three for those in our audience that don't know that?
Yeah, look, and it's been funny tripping around the world talking to people about the finder, minder, grinder model, and a lot of people roll their eyes at you or raise their eyebrows at you, right, and go, what on earth are you talking about? So this is a bit of a down under thing, I think, to be fair, finder, minder, grinder. But it's a typical Aussie, way of reducing everything to its sort of base denominators. But it's the reality of all accounting firms. So you have grinders, these are the people, they do the work, they grind the work out. They might have a bit of client contact, they may not have much client contact depending on how your firm works. They may well be offshore. So they're the doers. Then you got the minders. So these are your client managers. They're the people, they interact mostly with the clients, they manage the grinders. And typically they'd be in an accounting firm, they'd be a sort of assistant manager level person. And then your finders, that's a bit easier to get your head around. The finders are the ones that you obviously they do work. They may well be the directors or the partners in the firm, but they clearly need to know quite a lot about accounting, but perhaps a bit less about the technical stuff, a bit more about being comfortable with challenging client conversations and going out and finding new work. That's their job, is to keep the funnel open in the firm. So looking at that sort of finder, minder, grinder profile, what we've done is say, well, so what is you've got an accounting personality profile. What does that look like for a grinder? What's your ideal grinder look like? What does your ideal minder look like? And so what we've done is, and this isn't actually up yet, but it will be in the next few days actually. What we've done is say, okay, you can overlay, say you're hiring a minder level person, a manager level person. So you give them the personality profile. You can then overlay what a minder, an ideal minder profile looks like, and look for inconsistencies. Look, and this is not an exact science. Dealing with people is not an exact science. So no one's going to fit the ideal profile, but there may be some areas where they're quite different to the profile. And those are the things you're just going to want to think about. And in particular, if you're looking, say, at a promoting somebody to manager, but you're actually seeing these as a future partner in the firm. And that's often the situation. That might be an internal promotion, if you like, as well as an external hire. So you want to see what this person is, not only as a minder, but what's their capability as a finder. And if that's looking a bit thin, well, now's the time to get your the professional development plan together for them to help them build those skills to be a finder even though you might well be very happy with them as a minder, but you can have that open conversation with them about, hey, this is telling us this is going to be challenging for you. Let's get a plan together. Let's, I'll take you to some events. Let's go together to some events. I'll introduce you to some people. Stuff that will help them be more comfortable about moving into that next role and work around what their natural, stay in the office, perhaps personality might be. So that's I guess what we're trying to do is help people better fit the opportunities they've got to the people that they're looking for. And again, it's all about trying to help people make good decisions and bring people on in a way that is is the most rewarding for everybody.
It reminds me, I was talking to a firm owner late last week about a hiring decision they were making. And as this particular owner was talking, they were talking about where they wanted them to come in at the manager level, but they have to be willing to still do quite a bit of prep because they don't quite have the volume. And the reason they want them at the manager level is someone in the next year is going to take some time off. So they want to be able to elevate them. And that was my caution to them was, if you purely go out and try to grab somebody at a manager level as opposed to a senior level, and then their predominant role is going to be to execute work from a grind perspective, you're going to end up with a really frustrated employee. And I think that, I advise them to go find someone that knows and is desiring still crank out some work. And there's growth opportunity and there's upward mobility that can come with that. And you can put that in place as you need. But if you hire for what you want later and expect them to work down that chain in the meantime, you're going to probably find yourself hiring all over again, would be my assumption.
Oh, look, and it's in today's market, especially. I was talking to a firm yesterday, and they've hired 11 people in the last 3 months at that mid-level, 3 times as many as they would normally have hired at that level. Just the churn is just, people are still. I think it's starting to turn, but the churn is still there. And if people aren't super happy, you're going to lose them.
Yeah, and I think your product in this conversation goes back to expectations on both sides of the street, right? What is the firm expecting of them? What is the candidate expecting to be able to do? And there's just a lot of assumptions made with titles on a resume. Hey, you were a senior at this mid-level firm, so we're going to assume that we know what you're capable of doing and what you don't mind doing with your day, and we're just going to give you the workload we intended anyways, and it won't really matter where you had, but we're not going to have that conversation.
And in 1 hour, we'll make a $75,000 decision about or set ourselves up for a $75,000 mistake if we get it wrong, and this is the bit that I guess I I've been there and done all this, so I know how easy it is to fall into the trap of not doing it properly. But accountants, what we do when we're advising clients, and Rory, you and I have had a discussion about this, but what we do is we use our knowledge, our business acumen to use information that we can glean from clients, financial information generally. We use that to help them make better decisions, and that's
it's different than the hiring acumen, right?
Well, it's the same, but I guess is that we use the knowledge that we've got to help clients who are probably entrepreneurial and probably know as much about business, if not more, than the accountant does. But the accountant can bring that technical expertise, that knowledge and skill to help them make better decisions. They won't be 100% great decisions, because that's just how life is, but what you're trying to do is improve the likelihood of a positive outcome. So
this go back to data, right? Giles?
Yeah, we go back to data. So
Yeah.
when you're hiring somebody, why would you not use the same philosophy? Why, if you're just going to base it on gut feel and, I can chat to them for an hour and like that, well, in that case, your clients may as well not bother talking to you as their accountant, because they may as well just go off and make whatever decisions their next door neighbours helps them come up with, because that's exactly the same scenario. Is you're just using your gut feel to work out what your next best decision for your business is going to be. And if you want to hire people like that, well, you get the outcomes that you get. So I guess that's where we then talk about hiring acumen, which is use data, use systems and processes to improve the outcome. Look, it's not, again, it's a people thing. It's about that improving the chances of the hire being successful. And the science, the psychology research will tell you that a good hiring process, and that's in particular the interview process and the testing and assessment process. You get that right, the chances of you having a successful hire are significantly improved over, for example, poor interviewing and no testing.
Yeah. Because doesn't the science show that we hire people that are similar to us or work with people that are similar to us?
Well, that's the totally, and that's the danger, isn't it? Is that we feel comfortable with people who are like us. And look, in an accounting firm, that's not necessarily a bad thing for many positions, but if the directors are hiring people who work in a similar way to them, that may well work out pretty well. There's a diversity aspect to that as well, which is clearly is a different thing, I think. But if you're looking for people who think in the same way as an accountant and have the same ethical framework as you do, and the same approach to relationships as you do, and you running a successful business, well, that's probably pretty good. But how are you going to tell that from an interview where everybody's, candidates in particular, they game the interviews. They know, they've watched all the videos, they've got all their interview questions prepped out, they've got their standard response to, tell me a time when you had to have a challenging conversation with your manager. They've worked all this out. So it's you're looking at subtleties in a lot of that. And I guess, again, that's where you can come back to the data and go, well, here's some objective data that we can use to sort of benchmark what we're being told. Sorry, just rabbiting on a bit there.
No, that's good. I wanted to kind of lead into that question of the diversity issue, Giles. Can you talk about, in regards to, we're in a profession that is in need of having a more diverse workforce? Can you talk about, ways in which your tests or in ways in which you're looking at things to help firms out there with more diverse hiring?
Yeah, it is challenging. And for example, things like English as a second language is difficult. And there's actually, we've got a whole lot of stuff up on our website that people can have a look at about how to use testing in the environment of diversity, and particularly for things like people who might suffer from things like dyslexia. The testing is challenging, and people come to us and go, oh, we think we should give this candidate more time because they've got a particular issue that's going to mean that it's going to take them longer, and that is challenging when you've got particularly fixed length tests like a skills test. You've got to, if you give people unlimited time, then you're not measuring what they know straight up. You're measuring how quickly they can use Google to look things up. So it is a challenge. And for example, in those situations, we would say, no, don't give extra time, because how much extra time is the right amount of extra time? And that once you've done that, it's like, well, all the norms you're looking at then don't apply. So how are you going to decide whether the person's done well or not? And what you're better to do is actually be supportive of them in an environment where they take the test as it is, and then but understanding where they're coming from and looking at the results in that context, and being prepared to then be flexible around, well, what does that mean? What are those results telling me, based on them having approached it in the normal way. Things like English as a second language, I think it's a bit easier because people have to be confident in dealing with business English in the environment in which they're going to work. And if they struggle with that, then they're going to struggle with everything that you want them to do if you're asking them to interpret business English. So, I think that one's a little bit easier.
What about,
again, it's about giving them the right tests though. So if it's a grinder role, you're looking at somebody who is probably going to be working a bit more with data maybe, but less interpretation. Sorry, Will.
No, that's all good. What about the growth with offshoring and using tests? Depending on which offshoring company you go with, some of them you're picking individuals, others you're just relying on their pool. What kind of interplay have you seen with testing and offshoring?
Well, I guess the firms that have used us in offshoring have been hiring direct. We have talked to some of the offshoring providers. They do their own thing, and I'm not. You could be slightly suspicious, and look, this goes for the whole recruiting industry. Is they run a mile from testing generally, because all the testing is going to do is come between them and a fee. If the candidate they put forward turns out not to be as good as the client might have thought, then there's a chance that they won't get hired and that they won't get the fee. And there are some recruiters, and this goes for the offshore ones as well. There are some recruiters who embrace testing. Most of them will go, oh, well, we'll do it if the client asks, which is sort of like, well, we'll deal with that problem if the client happens to know about some testing solution that otherwise we're not going to tell them about, if we're being honest. So sorry, to go back to your question, people who are hiring direct, and we've particularly in the Philippines is probably where we're seeing it the most. A lot of Philippine candidates coming through, pretty good ones too. Yeah, I'm impressed with the caliber of the candidates that we see people testing out of the Philippines.
All right. So wrapping up here, Giles, I know you touched on it briefly here about those competencies and what firms are looking for as far as hiring goes. What are the top, let's say, 3 competencies you see moving forward for people out there who are looking to excel in the profession?
Look, I don't think there's nothing new. What do you need to be a modern accountant? You need to be accepting of change. We all need to be accepting of change. You need to have strong relationship skills. That hasn't changed. I think the whole online working from home thing makes that more challenging. And I think people need to be more focused on working on those relationships, both with their clients and their staff. Particularly the ones who are less demanding, because they're the ones who you're not hearing from. So that's the relationship piece. And look, accountants still need to have skills. Google is great, but Google can't help you advise your client what to do next. And so we still need those strong technical skills. And I think that's that people are perhaps losing sight a little bit of the need for that skill, but that's what's going to make you a great accountant is your ability to provide that strong advice to your client when they need it, and that doesn't go away.
All right, makes sense. Giles, thank you so much for coming on the show. If people want to get in touch with you or Accountests, what's the best way to do so?
www.accountests.com, 1 T in the middle.
All right. Will, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, glad to be here, Giles. Nice conversation. I appreciate it.
It's been a real pleasure talking to you both. Yeah, thanks so much.
All right.
All opinions expressed by Rob Santos and Rory Henry on this website podcast interview are solely their opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Arrowroot Family Office LLC or their parent company or affiliates, and may have been previously disseminated on television, radio, internet, or another medium. You should not treat any opinion expressed by anyone as a specific inducement to make a particular investment or follow a particular strategy, but only as an expression of their opinions. Past performance is not indicative of future results.